The studio was dark except for the monitors. Leo kept it that way deliberately, had kept it that way for 4 years, through the late nights and the early mornings and the particular kind of sustained focus that required the world outside the screen to simply not exist. The darkness was a tool, the same way his microphone was a tool, and his color grading suite was a tool. Everything in this room existed in service of the work. Tonight the work was watching, on his primary monitor, a blank editing timeline empty, the way it had been empty for 11 days, since the account termination notice had arrived in his email at 4 in the morning, and he had sat in this same chair in this same darkness and read it 17 times before his mind fully processed what it meant. On his secondary monitor, Dorian's livestream, 81,000 concurrent viewers. The number sat in the corner of the stream interface in the cool white font of a platform that tracked such things with algorithmic indifference, caring nothing about the mechanism that had produced the number, only that the number existed and was large, and was therefore worth serving to more people who would make it larger still. Dorian was holding a champagne glass. The gold play button was mounted on the wall behind him, a recent addition, the specific symbol of a milestone that the platform awarded to channels reaching 1 million subscribers, which Dorian's channel had reached 6 weeks ago, and which Dorian had apparently decided deserved a dedicated celebration stream attended by 8/10 of his current concurrent viewership. He was describing his revenue metrics. He used the word blessed twice in 40 seconds, in the specific way that people used it when they meant asterisk successful but preferred the vocabulary of fortune to the vocabulary of effort, because the vocabulary of fortune implied that the success was deserved in some cosmic sense that effort did not. Then he said something that Leo had been waiting for, not because he had predicted it specifically, but because he understood Dorian well enough to understand that this moment would come, the moment when the champagne and the camera and the 80,000 people watching combined into something that required an object. Dorian looked directly into the lens. "Shoutout," he said, "to all the copycats who thought they could compete. The grind doesn't lie." A smile that had been calibrated over hundreds of hours of on-camera experience to read as confident without appearing cruel, though the calibration was imperfect in this particular instance. "Some of you know who you are. The algorithm always knows." Leo looked at his secondary screen. He looked at the stream latency indicator, 3 seconds. He looked at the terminal window he had opened on his primary monitor 30 minutes ago, where a single command waited, cursor blinking, for the key that would execute it. He thought about 4 years. He thought about 340,000 people who had subscribed to a channel that no longer existed. He thought about 11 days of automated rejection emails from a support system that processed his appeals with the same algorithmic indifference that had processed his termination. He pressed enter. On Dorian's stream for 3 seconds, nothing changed the latency window, playing out its delay, delivering the present moment of a stream that had already, at the source, ceased to be what it appeared. Then Dorian's face froze. Not the freeze of a connection dropping, the freeze of a source signal that had been replaced. The audio cut. The carefully designed background graphics that Dorian's production team had prepared for the milestone stream wavered, and then the stream shifted, and what 81,000 people saw instead of Dorian's celebration was something he had recorded for a different audience, in a different room, believing himself entirely private. The voice was his. The content was not intended for 80,000 people. Leo took a sip of his cold coffee. He watched the viewer count. It did not drop. It climbed. To understand how an editor without a platform, without a team, without any institutional support, had constructed the specific mechanism that was currently unraveling 4 years of Dorian's carefully built operation in front of the audience Dorian had assembled to celebrate it. You needed to go back. Back to the beginning. Back to the work. Back to the specific morning that Leo had opened his analytics dashboard and found the first strike, and the specific night he had understood that the system designed to protect creators was being used as a weapon against them, and the specific decision he had made in a dark studio with a blank monitor and the name * Dorian written at the top of an empty notebook page. He had started the channel at 23. With a camera he'd bought secondhand and an editing workflow he'd spent 18 months developing from first principles. Not from tutorials, he had watched tutorials, had absorbed them with the methodical attention he brought to anything he was learning. But the workflow itself had emerged from his own experimentation, from the specific problems he had encountered and the specific solutions he had developed for them. He understood timing at a level that was partly intuitive and partly deeply technical. The relationship between cut placement and emotional response, the specific frame range within which an edit felt either responsive or delayed, the way music and image could be synchronized to produce effects that seemed organic but were the product of extremely precise calculation. The channel grew because the work was genuinely good. This was, in Leo's understanding, the only legitimate foundation for sustainable growth, which was why he had never bought views, never engaged in engagement pods, never participated in the algorithmic games that certain corners of the creator ecosystem had developed to simulate organic performance. He uploaded consistently, he responded to his community, he iterated on his format based on what was working, and after 2 years he had a channel with 112,000 subscribers who were there because they had found something they valued. He noticed Dorian's channel in his second year, not immediately as a threat, initially as a peer, the way you notice someone working in your niche who was producing at a volume and quality level that merited attention. Dorian uploaded more frequently than Leo. His production quality was high, his pacing was competent, his topics overlapped with Leo's in a way that was entirely normal for a shared niche. Then Leo began to notice something specific. The edits, not the topics, not the general format, the edits. The specific timing of cuts. The particular rhythm of a transition he had developed over months of iteration and considered one of the more distinctive elements of his style. The color treatment that he had calibrated across 30 videos before he was satisfied with it. These things appeared in Dorian's videos. Not in every video. Not obviously enough to constitute the kind of visible mimicry that a casual viewer would flag, but consistently enough, across enough videos in enough specific details that Leo recognized what he was looking at. Not inspiration, not parallel development, but systematic study and replication. He said nothing publicly. He had watched enough of the creator ecosystem's public disputes to understand that public accusations without evidence produced narratives he couldn't control, and he had no interest in drama. He documented what he was seeing, timestamps, comparison screenshots, a systematic record of the instances, and he continued producing his own work. The first copyright strike arrived on a Tuesday morning in October. A claim against one of his most viewed videos. A piece he had produced 14 months earlier, every element of which he had created himself, every frame original, every audio component either licensed or produced in-house. The claim was filed by a shell account with no visible history and no associated content, which was the specific profile of an account created for the purpose of filing claims rather than for the purpose of creating anything. He filed a counter notification. Platform policy specified a response window of 10 business days. On day 9, the claim was withdrawn. On day 11, a second claim arrived. Different video, same profile type. He counter-notified. The pattern continued across 6 weeks, 12 claims, each withdrawn when he counter-notified, each followed by another, each one targeting a different video, each one filed by a different shell account with the same structural characteristics. The platform's automated systems, which were calibrated to protect copyright holders from infringement, and which treated a volume of claims against a channel as a signal of systemic violation, began to flag his account. He received a warning notification. He escalated his appeals. He documented the pattern of the claims, their timing, their source profiles, their relationship to each other, and to his counter notifications. He submitted the documentation to the platform's support system. The support system responded with automated text. He resubmitted with additional documentation. The support system responded with the same automated text, slightly reordered. The termination notice arrived at 4 in the morning on a Thursday. The account had been terminated under the platform's repeat infringement policy, the automated application of a rule that did not distinguish between genuine repeat infringement and the systematic abuse of the claim mechanism by a third party. 340,000 subscribers, 4 years of content, gone at the speed of an automated system processing a threshold it had been calibrated to process. He sat in his studio and read the notice 17 times. He filed an appeal. He filed a second appeal. He located every escalation pathway the platform published and submitted through each of them, with documentation that was thorough enough that any human reviewer examining it would have understood within minutes what had happened. The automated responses were consistent. On day 11, a human reviewer had apparently briefly engaged with his appeal. The response had slightly more specificity than the others, acknowledged the pattern he had described, indicated the matter was under review. On day 12, the review concluded. The termination was upheld. Leo closed the appeal interface. He sat in the dark of his studio for a while. He thought about the support system, and the automated responses, and the review process, and the threshold calibration, and the way a system designed to serve creators had been, in this specific instance, operated as a weapon by someone who understood its mechanics better than its designers had anticipated. He thought about Dorian's channel, which had not received a single claim. He thought about the documentation he had compiled, 12 claims, 12 shell accounts, the timing pattern that was visible to anyone willing to look at it. He opened a new notebook. He wrote one word at the top of the first page. Dorian. He thought about what he knew, which was the pattern. He thought about what he didn't know, which was the mechanism behind it. He thought about what he needed to understand, which was Dorian's workflow, how his operation actually functioned at the production level where its dependencies were, what it relied on that it shouldn't. He thought about the specific category of person who built a high-volume production operation using tools and assets they had not paid for, because paid tools left receipts and licensing records and audit trails, and certain kinds of operations preferred to avoid audit trails. He thought about what such a person did when they found something that looked useful and free. He thought about what useful and free could contain, if it was designed by someone who understood the specific technical environment in which it would be deployed, and who had 340,000 reasons to design it carefully. He picked up his pen. He started writing. The list was long. He did not stop until the studio's ambient light had shifted from the blue of midnight screens to the gray of approaching morning, and by then the list had become something more than a list. It had become the beginning of a plan. The research took 9 days. Leo did not approach it the way he had once approached creative problems, intuitively, associatively, following the thread of an idea until it produced something useful. He approached it the way he had learned to approach technical problems, systematically, building a map before moving through the territory, understanding the full shape of something before engaging with any single part of it. Dorian's operation was larger than it appeared from the outside. This was the first thing Leo understood, and it took him 3 days to understand it fully. The channel was the visible layer, the interface that audiences and advertisers and the platform's recommendation algorithms interacted with. Below it was a production infrastructure that required, to sustain its upload frequency and production quality, a team of at least 6 people, and a software stack that Leo could partially reconstruct from the artifacts visible in Dorian's video. The motion graphics packages, the audio processing, the color pipelines, the rendering workflows that produced specific visual signatures he recognized from his own deep familiarity with high-end production tools. Some of those tools were expensive. Some of them were the kind of expensive that a certain category of operator chose to address not by paying the licensing cost, but by finding the tools elsewhere, in the specific corners of the internet, where things that cost money were made available for free by people who had cracked the licensing mechanism, and uploaded the results to forums that existed in a permanent gray zone of accessibility and risk. This was not unusual in the creator economy. It was, in fact, common enough to be almost unremarkable, an open secret in certain production communities, the kind of thing that everyone knew and most people did not discuss publicly, because discussing it publicly would require acknowledging it. What made it relevant to Leo was not its moral dimension, which he had thought about and set aside as not being the operative consideration here. What made it relevant was its practical one. A production operation that sourced its tools from unofficial channels was a production operation with a specific vulnerability. The tools it relied on came from sources it could not fully verify, packaged by people whose motivations it could not fully know, containing code it could not fully audit. The efficiency of the workaround created the exposure. The exposure was the geography Leo needed to understand. He spent days 6 through 9 mapping it. He read everything publicly available about the forums Dorian's team frequented. Not difficult to identify, because the creator underground was smaller than it appeared, and the same sources surfaced repeatedly in the production communities Leo had been part of for 4 years. He studied the asset categories that a high-volume operation at Dorian's production level would require most urgently. Motion graphics templates, primarily, the kind that took weeks to build from scratch, and that a team under upload pressure would be strongly motivated to acquire through whatever channel made them available fastest. He understood what such a team would download without examining too carefully. He understood what without examining too carefully made possible for someone who understood the specific environment in which the asset would be used, and who had the knowledge to prepare something that looked, in every visible dimension, exactly like what it claimed to be. He was not a security researcher. He was an editor who understood at a level that went beyond most practitioners in his field. The technical architecture of the production environments he worked in, the rendering pipelines, the plugin interfaces, the ways that different software components communicated with each other, the specific access that an asset loaded into a professional rendering queue had to the broader system around it. He understood what could be done with that access by someone patient enough to design it carefully and willing to wait for the right moment to use it. He opened a new project file. He began to build the template. It took 3 weeks. The visible layer was genuinely good, better than good, the kind of motion graphics package that would have sold legitimately for several $100s if he had chosen to sell it, with the production quality and the design sophistication that came from 4 years of professional work. He built it with the same care he brought to everything, because a template that was merely adequate would not move through the ecosystem the way he needed it to move. It needed to be desirable. It needed to be the thing that a production team, encountering it, would want immediately and would not want to examine too carefully. Because careful examination was the enemy of speed, and speed was the pressure that operated on Dorian's team. The invisible layer was something he had spent considerably longer thinking about than building. He did not think about it in terms of what it would do to Dorian's system. That was an outcome, not a design principle. He thought about it in terms of what he needed to be able to do, at a specific moment, from a terminal window in his own studio, operating on information that would become available to him when the template was active in Dorian's rendering environment. He needed to be able to redirect. He needed the stream source, the specific output that Dorian's broadcasting software sent to the platform, to become, at a moment of his choosing, something other than what Dorian intended it to be. He needed Dorian's authenticated session, the browser cookies that told the platform systems that Dorian was Dorian, and that actions taken in that session were authorized, to remain active long enough for a specific sequence of account-level actions to execute. And he needed the forensic documentary. This was the part that had taken longest, not technically, but in the specific discipline it required. He had the documentation, the 12 claims, the shell accounts, the pattern analysis, the timestamps, the comparison evidence, the record of appeals submitted, and the automated responses received. He had, in the 9 days of research, found additional material, forum posts under accounts he had connected to Dorian's operation through patient cross-referencing, posts that discussed the claim campaign with a specificity that suggested direct knowledge, posts that described the mechanics of the approach with enough detail to constitute, in combination with the claim records, a reasonably complete picture of what had happened and who had directed it. He assembled this material into a documentary, not in the angry, reactive style of a creator who had been wronged and wanted an audience to know it. In the style he applied to everything he made, clear, structured, evidence first, allowing the documentation to speak rather than requiring his narration to carry weight it didn't need to carry. 34 minutes of material, every claim sourced, every connection explained, every piece of evidence time-stamped and cross-referenced to publicly verifiable records. He rendered it 3 times, adjusting the pacing on the second and the color on the third, because it was going to be seen by a great many people under circumstances he could control only partially, and the parts he could control he intended to control completely. He saved it to a drive he labeled, with the private humor of someone who had been operating alone for weeks in a dark studio *Final Cut. Then he packaged the template. He seeded it in the forum on a Tuesday afternoon, in the specific subcategory where motion graphics assets with Dorian's production profile were most actively sought. He gave it a name that communicated both its quality and its accessibility. Not flashy, not suspiciously generous, simply the name of a professional asset being shared by someone who had the expertise to make it. Then he waited. The download notification arrived on a Thursday morning. Not a notification in the conventional sense. There was no system sending him alerts about who was accessing what on a forum he had no administrative access to. What he had was a specific signal, embedded in the template's architecture, that transmitted a minimal confirmation when the asset was compiled in a rendering environment for the first time. A single packet of information, uninstructive on its own, meaningful only to someone who was waiting for exactly it. He saw it at 6:47 a.m. from his kitchen on his phone. He put down his coffee. He went to his studio. He opened the terminal. He did not do anything yet. He waited because the template would need to be used, integrated into active production, run through a rendering queue, touched by the specific actions that would make it useful. Before the preparation he had spent 3 weeks on would have any operational relevance. He watched the signal data, which told him things about the environment it was operating in that he had designed it to tell him, and he built from that information a picture of what was happening on the other end. A production team in a workflow they had used many times, moving quickly, the familiar efficiency of people who were producing at scale and had learned to trust their tools. They trusted this one. He waited through Thursday. He waited through Friday. On Saturday morning, he saw something in the data that told him the template had been integrated into an active project, not just compiled, but worked into a production pipeline that was generating output. He tracked the cadence of it, the rhythm of a production team operating under a specific deadline, and he understood from that rhythm what was coming. Dorian's gold button stream was announced on Saturday afternoon. Monday evening, 8 p.m. Leo looked at his calendar. He looked at the terminal. He thought about 340,000 subscribers. He thought about 11 days of automated rejection emails. He thought about *shoutout to the copycats who couldn't handle the grind. He began to prepare. Monday arrived with the particular quality of a day that existed in 2 temporal registers simultaneously. The ordinary Monday of a world that didn't know what was going to happen in the evening, and the specific, heightened Monday of someone who did. Leo spent the morning doing things that had nothing to do with the evening. He cleaned the studio, which needed it. He ate a real meal, which he had been neglecting. He went outside for an hour because the studio's darkness was a tool, and tools needed to be set down sometimes so you didn't forget what the world outside them looked like. He came back at 2. He ran his preparation checks, not nervously, the way someone ran checks when they were uncertain, but methodically, the way a professional verified a setup before a critical operation, because verification was not a response to doubt but a discipline that existed independently of it. Everything was where it needed to be. Everything was ready. He made coffee. He sat down. He waited for 8 o'clock. Dorian went live at 8:03. The stream quality was high. His production team had clearly put effort into the milestone setup, the lighting design, the background arrangement that positioned the gold play button at exactly the right angle to catch the camera. The metrics dashboard was displayed prominently in one corner of the stream frame, showing subscriber count, current concurrent viewers, monthly revenue figures, the complete architecture of a successful operation that Dorian was sharing with his audience as evidence of what the grind produced. The concurrent viewer count climbed through the first 20 minutes as the notification wave hit Dorian's subscriber base and people tuned in. By 8:20, it was past 60,000. By 8:30, it was approaching 75. Leo watched the secondary monitor. He watched the primary monitor, where his terminal waited. He watched Dorian open the champagne. He watched Dorian look directly into the camera and say what he said. He checked the stream latency. 3 seconds. He leaned forward. He hit enter. The 3 seconds passed. On Dorian's stream, the signal that his broadcasting software was sending to the platform changed at the source. Not with a warning, not with any visible transition at the production end, simply with the quiet replacement of one source with another in the fraction of a second that such replacements require. the stream did not drop. Streams that dropped lost viewers. A stream that continued, that maintained its connection to the platform's delivery infrastructure while changing what it was delivering, kept them. Dorian's stream kept them. What it delivered for the next 34 minutes was not Dorian. It was the documentary. Clear title card first, 5 seconds, white text on black, the specific clarity of something that wanted to be read. What happened to Leo's channel? A documentation. Then the evidence. The 12 claims, displayed one by one with their timestamps and their source account profiles, and the specific detail that each source account had no content history and no subscriber base, and had existed for fewer than 30 days before the claim was filed. The pattern analysis, a visual chart that required no expertise to read, showing the timing relationship between Leo's counter notifications and the arrival of subsequent claims. A relationship that did not look like coincidence and was explained in the documentary's narration without editorial embellishment. The forum posts, the connections, the documentation of a campaign that had been discussed in spaces Dorian's team believed were private with enough specificity to constitute a record. And then, at the 22-minute mark, audio. Dorian's voice, not a clip taken out of context. The documentary presented it with the surrounding recording intact, enough context to make the content unambiguous. A voice memo in which Dorian discussed the claim campaign with someone on his team in the specific, operational language of people discussing a process they had used before and expected to use again. 78,000 people heard it. The viewer count, which Leo was monitoring on a separate window, did not drop. It climbed. Platform recommendation systems, which were calibrated to serve content that retained viewers rather than content that lost them, observed a stream with sustained watch time and high concurrent engagement, and began to recommend it to additional users who were not already watching. By the 28th minute, the concurrent count was above 90,000. Leo watched this from his studio. He drank his coffee. He was aware, from the signal data available to him, that activity in Dorian's environment had shifted dramatically around the 4-minute mark. The kind of activity that suggested someone who had been relaxed was no longer relaxed, who had understood something was happening and was attempting to address it. The stream connection was not addressable from Dorian's end through ordinary means. What he could do was attempt to shut down the source at the hardware level, which would end the stream entirely, or attempt to contact the platform's support system for an emergency intervention, which would take time that the documentary did not require. The documentary required 22 more minutes. It took them. At the 34-minute mark, the stream returned to a blank screen with the station card that broadcasting software displayed when a source was disconnected. Dorian had reached the hardware level, or the platform had intervened, or both. By that point, the documentary had been viewed in its entirety by over 90,000 people, and portions of it had already been clipped and redistributed across multiple platforms by viewers who had understood what they were watching, and had made the preservation decision that viewers made when they encountered content they believed was going to be removed. It was not going to be difficult to remove. It already existed in too many places. The authenticated session that remained active in Dorian's browser environment, active through the chaos of the preceding 34 minutes, during which Dorian had been operating at the hardware level of his machine rather than its software layer, executed its final sequence at 9:41 p.m. The sequence was not dramatic in its technical mechanics. It was simply the completion of a request that Dorian's authenticated credentials had initiated, a request that the platform systems received from an authenticated user and processed, according to their standard procedure for such requests, which involved a confirmation window and a processing period, and a point of irreversibility that once passed, left the platform with nothing further to do. The confirmation had been provided. The processing period had elapsed. The point of irreversibility was passed at 9:41. Dorian's primary channel, which had at that moment 1,047,000 subscribers, ceased to exist as a retrievable entity in the platform's active database. His secondary channels followed within 4 minutes, processed in the queue order in which their deletion requests had been submitted. The pending AdSense balance, the accumulated advertising revenue for the current payment period, which had not yet cleared to Dorian's bank account, was, as the final action of the sequence, redirected through a documented API pathway to 3 verified charitable organizations whose legitimacy Leo had confirmed before including them in the process. He had not wanted the money, he had wanted it to go somewhere that wasn't Dorian. At 9:47, Leo opened his email. He sent a message to the platform's Creator Trust and Safety Escalation team. A specific address he had located through 3 weeks of research into the platform's internal structure. Not a public-facing address, but a real one, used for matters that required human review by people with decision-making authority rather than automated systems processing a queue. The email contained the full evidence package: the claim documentation, the counter-notification records, the forum posts, the audio recordings, the pattern analysis, and a clear, organized summary of the sequence of events that had resulted in the termination of his original channel. It also contained a link to the documentary, which was already available on 17 separate platforms and had accumulated, by the time he sent the email, over 400,000 views. He CC'd 3 journalists who covered the creator economy and who had, in his research, demonstrated a track record of accurate and substantive reporting on platform accountability issues. He hit send. He closed the email client. He leaned back in his chair. The studio was quiet around him, the specific quiet of a space that had held something for weeks and was now, with its purpose discharged, simply a room with a desk and monitors and the smell of coffee that had been sitting too long. He looked at the blank primary monitor. He thought about 4 years of work. He thought about the specific texture of building something from nothing, the late nights and the iterative refinement, and the particular satisfaction of an edit that worked, that achieved exactly what an edit was supposed to achieve, that served the audience who had come to trust your instincts enough to return. He thought about 340,000 people who had subscribed to a channel that no longer existed, some of whom had been watching tonight, some of whom had already found his recovery channel, a small channel he had started 11 days ago under a new name, with a single video explaining what had happened, and had left comments that he had read and not responded to yet, because there had been something he needed to finish first. He opened a new browser tab. He navigated to the recovery channel. He opened the comment section. He began to read. The platform's response arrived at 11:14 a.m. the following day. Not an automated response, a response from a named individual in the Trust and Safety Escalation team, who had reviewed the documentation, who had confirmed the pattern of claims against his original channel, who had determined that the termination had resulted from coordinated abuse of the platform's copyright reporting mechanism rather than genuine infringement. The original channel would be restored. The restoration process would take 48 to 72 hours. Leo read this email twice. He set his phone down. He picked up his coffee. He looked at the studio, the same darkness, the same monitors that had held everything he'd built, and then held the blank space where it had been, and then held the preparation that had preceded last night. He thought about something a professor had told him in a production seminar years ago, before the channel and before Dorian and before any of this, that the quality that separated good editors from great ones was not technical facility, which could be taught, but patience, the willingness to wait for the exact right moment to make a cut, to hold the tension longer than felt comfortable, to trust that the moment would come, and that acting before it arrived would cost more than waiting. He had waited. The moment had come. He opened a new project file. He had content to make. He had an audience coming back. He had work to do, which had always been the thing, the work, the actual work, the edit that served the person watching it, the 4-year accumulation of a craft that no one had been able to delete because it lived not in the channel's database entry, but in the specific, irreducible knowledge of a person who had built it from the inside out, and who understood it in ways that could not be copied by someone watching from the outside. He put on his headphones. He pressed play on the timeline. He began.